So there were three of those guys that we mentioned have kind of been staple 5-stars throughout the last year or so: Griffin, Gibson, and Zayden Walker. But there was one somewhat eye-opening 5-star on the Georgia side of things in the final rankings. Juan Gaston moves up 90 spots to that 5-star ranking. I believe it was number 18 overall. I'll admit, when he showed up to Orlando and I saw that he measured in at 388, I was a little bit worried, but it sounds like it didn't hamper him at all. What ultimately earned him that 5th star?
Yeah, well, 388, 368, the numbers have been all over the place. The bottom line is he looks like he's 300 pounds. And this is a kid that I had on my freaks list. Kind of a college coach put him on my radar. They're like, this is a big individual, but you got to see the way that he moves. And that was really our first live exposure to Juan Gaston since this time last year at the Under Armour camp. And he looked a little bit, I would say, slimmer, but for a guy his size, his ability to move and react at that weight, it's extremely rare. And it's like, all right, we're trying to find a player comp for him. I think the one on the profile is Cam Williams, who was at Texas, starting tackle for Texas this past season. You know, he's projected to go in the first round in this upcoming draft. A lot of mock drafts have him in there. And it's just the sheer size, right? But if you're going to be that big, you have to be an exceptional athlete. And I thought Juan Gaston, the 2 practices there in Orlando, he really looked the part. And then the same thing in the game, right? So we had this, day 3 grade on him. You dig back into the tape after seeing him in this best on best setting. All right, now you notice how he's moving. All right, he's playing some defensive line. He's shooting gaps and making tackles in the backfield. All right, then you dig back into the basketball tape, and he's just – he's a freak at his size, and kind of reminds me a little bit of Evan Neal. Came out many years ago, played at Alabama, went onto the NFL, and he's in much better shape than Evan Neal was at this stage. And Juan, the more we learned about this group in the all-star setting, the more we all kind of fell in love with him. And it's a really talented year for offensive tackles. We got 9 offensive linemen that finished as 5 stars. That's the most ever in the 24/7 sports era. We've been doing this 10 years in a row. And, I think that position, just with where we are at right now in football, you think about all these pass rushes, they're so supercharged. And I'm talking at all levels, right? You see it in high school, you certainly see it in college. And then in the NFL, the pass rushes have gotten so good that the decision makers are flipping over and trying to find more and more offensive linemen. And it's super difficult, right? These bodies that can move the way Juan Gaston does. Cooper Patagna, on my scouting team always says it, like, that's a cat that's going to have 9 lives. Someone is going to see that size and give this kid a chance after chance after chance after chance. So, he's one that certainly became a darling for us. And they think about it like this, right? Transfer portal, everyone wants to talk about it, and for good reason. But you look at the national title game, right? So you go to Ohio State and Notre Dame. 18 of the 22 starters for each program were homegrown high school recruits, guys they signed out of high school. All 10 of the starting offensive linemen in that game were high school recruits that were signed, out of high school, and they weren't any transfers. So, I certainly think that's a trend, offensive line, and that's really the theme of the class. And I think Georgia's getting a good one, right? He's going to excel in a power-based scheme because that's what he is. He's a big bully, right? He turns pass reps into run blocks extremely easy.
For sure. No, I was just as someone who's gotten to know Juan, I was super pumped when I saw that he was getting elevated to that 5-star status. I think he's a quiet guy for his size, and I think that sometimes that gets misconstrued as, he's not competitive enough or whatever that might be. He's as competitive of a dude as I've been around, and I know that when he gets on the field, he will increase his chirp level compared to what he does when he's not on the field. But I like that one as well.